The best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets casket is top. You be seeing helmet after helmet, helmet after helmet. First place, second place, fifth place, eighth place, 12th place, 15, 16, 20. So many helmets, you got blurred vision, we got too many. Tick your tech. Oh man, shit. They got us fucked up. Army, recruit. We pledge always to have that edge. We don't fire warning shots. Competition just dropped. We locked and loaded before lock. Whatever the time, yeah. Do you even correlate?
Being the best requires a willingness to outwork your competition. There's always someone smarter, faster, sharper, more naturally gifted to come around.
Welcome back, DFS Army. We are taking another look at Yahoo NFL DFS main slate. So this week on Yahoo Week 16, we have a Christmas Eve special. That's going to be the main slate. So doing it a little different. We got the big slate on Saturday, and then on Sunday is actually going to be a three-game slate for Christmas. So let's go ahead and look at it. Sorry we started a little late this week. Had to get the ownership totals in before we could do the show. But let's go ahead and look into the Vegas lines. Oh, I'm going to go over to the domination station and look at the game total. So very low game totals right now. We'll see how these will adjust by game time on Saturday. We got a lot of weather coming in. I mean, it's currently like negative 30 in Denver where I'm recording. So a lot of winds. It's supposed to be really just snow, really cold in a lot of areas. So oftentimes, though, these things tend to adjust that by game time. So we'll see how they end up affecting the lines and if they start to move or not. But first one, we got a low total, 35.5, Baltimore and Atlanta. Atlanta side, really, they're just running the ball. There's really nothing to like here. Very low game total. Maybe just like a one-off in like tournaments like we saw in the Millie Maker last week. Play, like a Tyler Algier or Cordarrelle Patterson. But other than that, there's really nothing to like on their side. And then Baltimore, Lamar Jackson might be back this week. Really, there's a little bit of, I like Mark Andrews. If you get Lamar Jackson back this week, it's a good matchup for him, but he's just been very poor over really since about week 6. So we'll see. Other than that, really nothing that I want from this game. So Detroit versus Carolina, there's some good pieces in this game. Of course, on the Detroit side, Amon-Ra is back in play, and Swift as a cash game play just because he's so cheap over on Yahoo. He's about $15. We like that. On the Carolina side, obviously Detroit, not very good defensively. They're good against the run, but from the wide receiver position, they could be exploited, of course. So on Carolina side, you have the potential for like DJ Moore if he plays, maybe a GPP only play, Terrace Marshall, Laviska Shenault. Other than that, there's really nothing that we like on the Carolina side in cash games, and a pretty low game total, as most of the games are. So 43.5. Now, Buffalo and Chicago. On the Buffalo side, obviously Josh Allen is always in play as a cash game quarterback, and his pass catchers are coming in very low owned this week, despite Josh Allen being projected higher owned because he's a cash game quarterback and you're not necessarily looking to stack in cash games. His pass catchers are being low. So some leverage plays there for us. On the other side, we have Justin Fields. He's coming in low owned again this week as well. So love him as a leverage play. But other than that, don't really like anything on the Chicago side. It's a very low game total. They're not projected to score a lot of points, 15-point team total. So low game total, not a lot to like there. New Orleans and Cleveland, outside of playing defenses, I don't want really any part of this game. But I think you could obviously play both defenses. Very low game totals, just low team totals. Don't want to touch it. Now, really should save this game for last because it's the best one on the slate. Seattle and Kansas City. This game has the highest team total or game total on the slate and the second highest team total. Kansas City, 29.5. And then we have Seattle with a 19-point team total, and the overall game total is 49 points. So Kansas City just across the board has been giving up a lot of points above average to the defensive, are really just to opposing offenses. So quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, they've just been giving up a lot of points. The past 3 weeks, they've given up over 25 points a game, and two of those teams they played are Denver, who just had an abysmal offense all year. They give up 28 points to Denver, and then last week they gave up 24 points to Houston, who has Chris Moore as their primary pass catcher. So there will be opportunities for Seattle, of course. Now they are without Tyler Lockett. DK Metcalf projects as a chalk. But other than that, everyone else is low owned. So I love that game from a leverage standpoint, just a way to get contrarian on the Seattle side with Marquise Goodwin, Noah Fant, and then Kenneth Walker as well. And obviously Geno plus 2 stacks are in the mix. On the other side of that game, Kansas City, they have the highest team total on the slate at 29.5 points. Obviously, Mahomes stacks. Jerick McKinnon has really been a big part of the offense. They've been scheming him open. He's been getting runs. He's been getting receptions. He's just looked really good. And both him and Pacheco are coming in low owned this week. Also, Kelsey, he's expensive, but this is really one of the best plays on the slate for Kelsey. Seattle, very poor against the tight end position. So a lot of ways you can go in that game. A lot of stacking possibilities as we'll get into. And then one of the other higher game totals, New York Giants, and going against Minnesota. It's very strange because Minnesota is poor against the wide receiver position. So, with the Giants, there should be a lot of opportunities for them to score, but it's very much a guessing game as to who that's going to be. Is this going to be Isaiah Hodgins? He's one of the top fantasy points per dollar plays. Is it going to be Richie James, who's really getting a big target share in the offense, as well as Darius Slayton, or Bellinger. So tricky on who it's going to be. I do think Daniel Jones is playable this week, and in tournaments, of course. And then on the other side, on the Minnesota side, obviously Justin Jefferson is in play. He's been the alpha wide receiver on the season, number 1 in scoring. So he is cash game consideration and tournaments as well. Next game, Cincinnati and New England. I don't love a whole lot from this game on either side. I do like Ramondre Stevenson, as we'll get into in our cash game plays, but pretty low game total. New England has a pretty good defense, so there's just not a lot to like here. Now, Houston against Tennessee, really the only thing that I think you could go with in this game. Brandon Cooks has some consideration in cash just because he's so cheap, and we do know he gets a lot of targets when he's in the offense. In Tennessee, they are very poor in their secondary defending wide receiver. But on the other side of that, the smash play, the number 1 play on the slate is Derrick Henry. Last time he faced Houston, he went off for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Houston's run defense is just as bad as it was back then. So there's no reason why Derrick Henry shouldn't smash in this spot. With Malik Willis likely to start, they're probably going to run the ball even more than they have in the past. So it's safe to say Henry is going to get 25 plus carries. Last time, I believe he got 32. He could definitely see that again. Next game, Washington and San Francisco. For me, not a lot to like here. Low game total as well, 38 points. But Christian McCaffrey does project well. This week, his volume, there's McCaffrey and there's Henry. There's not many other backs that get the kind of elite volume in today's NFL that those two do. Christian McCaffrey getting about 24 touches a game over the past 3 games. So we obviously, he's in play and he does project. Actually, he's the top running back this week via the domination station, as we'll see. And then last game, Eagles at Dallas. So this has a 46.5 point team total. I do like some Minshew in tournaments because we have seen GPP winning upside with him before. I believe it was last year, week 13. He was in a lot of winning GPPs. He was in the Millie Maker on DraftKings, stacked with Goddard. Now they obviously have A.J. Brown. Goddard is back this week, so stacking consideration with Minshew, and obviously both Devonta and A.J. Brown and Minshew plus 2 stacks. He's very cheap, so I believe he is tournament viable, of course. And then on the other side, tougher matchup, obviously, for Dallas, but they've beat tough matchups before. For me, nothing there in cash games, but in tournaments, Lamb, Pollard, Zeke, they're obviously all in play. So we're going to go over to my article that I wrote. This is over at dfsarmy.com. So if podcast, awesome. If you just like reading articles, this is out each and every week as well. So starting at the quarterbacks, Josh Allen, there's really just 3 plays for me, and he is obviously always one of the top plays. But Chicago, bottom 10 team in the league at giving up points to the quarterback. Allen, he's currently 3rd in scoring. So, between him and Mahomes, the same exact price. I prefer Mahomes this week, but Allen, he remains an every week cash viable quarterback just with his rushing floor and, his pass catching playmakers around him. Now, Patrick Mahomes, this game features the highest game total on the slate. The Chiefs have the highest team total, and KC's defense, they've just been suspect lately. And what that has resulted in is KC needing to score 25 plus points to win. And this game really should be no different against Seattle. So I love this game environment. And Mahomes is my cash game QB this week. And he is the chalk via the domination station, which we will see here in a minute. And Justin Fields. So he got 2 touchdown passes last week and 95 yards rushing on the ground. And that was a very good Eagles defense. We know they're very good. So he's going against Buffalo this week. He can beat good matchups with his rushing floor because he has 7 straight games over 20 points. So I will have exposure to him in tournaments as well. And he is stackable, but it's one of those things where with him, the way he runs, being so depleted at pass catcher, I really don't think you necessarily need to stack him. You just let the optimizer ride and just roll with it. But yeah, speaking of the Dom Station, DFS Army, we have the Dom Station for Yahoo as I've gone over. So we're going to build some lineups here at the end. You can use code FantasyFling for 10% off of the VIP subscription. This will show you the top fantasy points per dollar plays, ownership, projections, and then building lineups in the domination station, which we will get to. Running backs. So by the way, if you like this comment, please smash the like button, comment, subscribe, and share, and hit that notification button so that you never miss an episode, specifically when we go live. But as I mentioned, Henry, last time he went against the Texans in week 8, 219 yards, 2 touchdowns. Houston's run defense, they're giving up 6.62 points above average to the running back position. So with Willis starting again, they're just going to feed Henry. It's a great matchup. They need to win. They're going to ride Henry. So he's a great play this week. Christian McCaffrey, he has the top projection this week, 20.7 points, actually in front of Henry. I don't agree with it, but he is $4 less. So if you want to play him in cash, of course, do it. He gets a lot of volume as well, 24 touches over the past 3 games. That's what he's averaged. And you definitely have to play him in tournaments. You need some Christian McCaffrey exposure, but obviously you aren't playing Henry and Christian McCaffrey in the same lineup. Now, Ramondre Stevenson, it was a crazy play last week with Jacoby Myers, but it really started with Stevenson lateraling the ball back to Myers. He's getting about 20 looks a game, so it's very productive. He got 174 yards and a touchdown with his 20 looks last week. And he comes in with a top 5 projection, and he does not have a top 5 price tag. So we love that from value relative to his role. However, if Damian Harris plays, Stevenson is not a cash game play for me. At that point, I would just play him only in tournaments. Now, Kamara does project really well this week. He's been very underwhelming, but Cleveland is 3rd worst team in the league against the run, giving up almost 5 points above average to the running back position. Kamara still seeing a lot of volume. He had 21 carries into 100 yards last week, so it's not like he's been bad. It's just the touchdowns haven't been there. He's definitely a solid play in cash games for me. Now, Jerick McKinnon, we alluded to it. Now, Seattle's giving up 7.15 points above average to the running back position. That is worse in the league. And the Chiefs, they continue to scheme McKinnon open and give him a lot of carries. So when it's all said and done, I think recency bias may have him over-owned than what we're currently seeing. But in cash games, I actually prefer that because we have that safety. We're only trying to beat 50% of the field in cash games. So it doesn't hurt us, if he is highly owned and we play him, and he fails. However, if he is highly owned and we don't play him and he smashes, that's how it hurts us in cash games, because we're only trying to beat 50% of the field. So DeAndre Swift, he does come in as a top fantasy points per dollar running back play this week. So if you need a cheap option to fit in your lineup, which you normally need 1 to 2, which obviously tight end, you're going to go cheap. Defense, you're going to go cheap in your cash games. And then you normally need like 1 to 2 guys in the teens for running back and wide receiver to kind of fill out your cash lineup, which we've been doing, and it's going to work 70% of the time. You're going to cash just by doing that. So when we pay up for the studs, of course, they get high volume. Now, wide receivers, speaking of studs, Justin Jefferson, the Giants, they're a middling team against pass, and Jefferson's been on an absolute tear. 33% of targets in the offense, number 1 scoring wide receiver. So he's always in play in all formats at this volume and this production. But obviously, you're not playing Justin Jefferson and Derrick Henry, so you're really going to need to pick who you'd want to play. For me, this week, it would be Henry in cash, but obviously, you could play Jefferson as well. So Amon-Ra St. Brown. The matchup is much easier this week against the Carolina team that gives up 3.5 points above average to the wide receiver position. Amon-Ra, he boasts a 23% target share on the season, and he'll continue to, this streak of 6 straight games over double digit points. So that's what we're looking for from our cash game players. We want double digit points to hit that cash line. So DK Metcalf, KC's defense, they've been suspect lately, giving up fantasy points above average, as I mentioned, to all the positions: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. They have allowed the Broncos offense to score, Houston to score, so on and so forth. DK, he's projected as the 3rd highest ownership wide receiver this week, and for good reason. It's a great matchup. So he's in a great matchup. We're playing him in cash. Marquise Goodwin, solid play for all the reasons listed above. He should see an uptick in targets with Lockett out, and he fits as a solid bring back option in Mahomes stacks. Now, Juju, back-to-back games over 10 targets, remains cheap relative to his role in the offense. He saw the highest target share in the offense last week at 26%. I do prefer him over Godwin and cash, but we'll have exposure to both in KC and Seattle stacks. And then Cooks, as I mentioned, if he plays this week, he slides back into a great matchup. Now, tight ends, Travis Kelce, I love him this week in tournaments. I probably won't go there in cash just because I prefer pay down options in cash. And there's just not enough value, I think, to really, if we get an injury and we get a really stone minimum running back that's going to get a lot of volume, that's when, I'd be looking to pay up it, like Travis Kelce, for example. But we're not expecting that this week. So he's always playable with Mahomes in tournaments, and because of that 3 touchdown game. And this would certainly be the week that would project that way in this game environment. Seattle giving up 4.61 points above average to the tight end position. Andrews, we alluded to it. He's not good, but the matchup he hasn't been good. He is good. The matchup the matchups haven't quite been as good. And then he's had Tyler Huntley out, but this is a good matchup. So hopefully he can get back on track. Obviously you want some tournament exposure to Mark Andrews. Now, Noah Fant, he is a cheap stacking option. KC Seattle game, back-to-back games, so over 5 targets and a touchdown. Like him in cash games in this environment and in tournaments as well. And then for me, really, I do think this is a game environment and week that would set up in tournaments as a double tight end with like a Kelce and like a Noah Fant, for example. It's not out of the question for me, especially when we get into their ownership. Dan Bellinger, top fantasy points per dollar play via the Dom station. It is a good matchup as far as the New York Giants pass catchers, specifically their wide receivers, but he's stone minimum, so he does come in as a top fantasy points per dollar play. I would rather go with Noah Fant, but he's in play as well. Defenses. So we're typically going to look for punt options, but you do always want to consider paying up in GPPs. So the top pay up option for me would be Baltimore going against Ritter. He didn't look great last week. Atlanta has a 14-point team total. It's the lowest on the slate. I think you should have some GPP exposure there. New Orleans Saints, they're cheap, and the Browns offense, it's not been good since Watson returned to the lineup. So they've averaged just 11.5 points scoring in the past 2 games. So they're in play. And then Cincinnati Bengals, $10 top fantasy points per dollar play with a 7.27 point projection. So my top stack of the week. Now, it is pricey, and Mahomes is projected for a lot of ownership, but good things that Kelsey isn't. And there are stacking pieces in this game that are cheap, so I think it can work in your Mahomes +2. So Statsational model loves this game, and especially the Chiefs side of it. Let's just say they do project to score more than the Vegas 29.5 team total. That's what the Statsational model projects. And they are the top projected passing offense this week with over 300 yards. Now, Kelsey, we know he's the number one tight end in the game. And then Seattle, third worst in the league at defending the position. So it just projects like a great spot for Kelsey to have a 2-touchdown kind of week. And there are cheap options like Tony, who practiced in full this week. If he plays, I know we've been burned by him before, but we got to be willing to go back there. He's only $11. And, there are some pay down options at running back in this game as well that are projected as contrarian. So obviously, if you're paying up for like a Kelsey, you're looking to pay down. So my top leverage plays, Gardner Minshew, his $20 price is low enough that he doesn't need to have a ceiling game for that tournament winning upside. He has been in the nuts before, and he obviously could be paired with AJ and Devonta Smith, but he's got past history with Goddard. Now, Geno Smith, under 1%. That's just way too low for what it's projected as. Fantastic game environment. Let's see what his price is actually as well. He's $32, so he's not cheap. So that's probably why, he's priced up a little bit. But he is a little bit of salary relief. And if this game really goes off, that's certainly a way to leverage it. And you get a little bit of salary savings there by going to Geno, maybe doing like a Kelsey bring back in Geno stacks. So Justin Fields, again, less than 1% ownership. What is the field doing? So he's had multiple ceiling games already this year. And as he showed last week, doesn't really matter the matchup. He can still score over 20 points. So certainly want to take some shots there. Kenneth Walker, good matchup and great game environment. And there's a legit chance the Seahawks just lean on their young playmaker in this game. Just try to slow the game down because they know what Mahomes could do. So try to keep the ball out of his hands. He's a great way to get direct leverage, in my opinion. And then both Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco are coming in at less than 5% ownership. I have a hard time believing this based on how good the matchup is against Seattle. Giving up 7 points above average to the running back position. However, this is something I would check closer to lock and just play it based on ownership. McKinnon, I'm probably playing him regardless this week. But if McKinnon ends up being high owned and, you're trying to get some ownership relief there to get more contrarian, play Isaiah Pacheco, direct leverage off of Jerick McKinnon. So I think that's a great play. They could also both be played. It happened last week. So just keep an eye on it and incorporate that into your general strategy. Now, AJ Brown, he's projected as low owned and Hurts is out of the lineup. So I like AJ Brown and Minshew stacks. Stephon Diggs, we want to play studs with slate breaking upside at low ownership. It's as simple as that. So 5% owned. Juju, fantastic game environment. And he's really been, outside of Kelsey, number one in their offense, 18% target share of the season. He got 26% last week. So he's also on the cheaper side. And then him and Goodwin as well. So solid play just because, again, we like this game environment. The Chiefs defense has not been very good. And he fits as a solid bring back option and Mahomes stacks, and he's low owned. So we like that. Kelsey, low owned as well because of the price tag. We will eat that up this week. And then Noah Fant makes for a cheap, low-owned stacking option again in that game. And specifically, I do think double tight end specifically in this game can work this week. So what we're going to do real quick, just kind of show you how to build some lineups in the domination station, specifically for Yahoo's format. So we're going to do tournament, 3 uniques. I do a little bit of tight end this week. Make 150. And then we're going to set a rule. And this is a new rule, too, that we can do. So we do quarterback, no less than 2 pass catchers of same team. And we can also exclude a player like Justin Fields, who we don't want to be stacking with 2. And then we're going to go to our quarterbacks that we really like. This week, we're going to go to Mahomes / Nador on him. We like Minshew as well, like, just in tournaments, for example. Now, you can do this a couple different ways. It's going to show projections. Actually, it's set to show projected ownership right now as number 1, but you can sort it by projections. We love Henry. And then we'll look at some of the fantasy points per dollar plays as well. Swift. Say we adore Metcalf. How about Goodwin? Put a love on him. Juju. And then oftentimes, specifically with like defenses, you want to sort by fantasy points per dollar. Defensive tight ends, that'll give you some of the better matchups. And we'll just run it and see what it spits out. I found back testing that even if you don't want to do 150 lineups, I normally have found back testing that you want to build 150 lineups because it's going to give you the right player combinations to where the top projected will be some of your best performing lineups. So even if you want to do like only 50 lineups, I would still run 150 and choose the 50 that you want. All right, it's going a little too slow. Let's put in. And sometimes you have to tinker with this. Let's see what it gave us. definitely some Gardner Minshew lineups. You can see how many studs you're able to fit in playing a $20 Gardner Minshew. So you're able to get Minshew, Ramondre, DeAndre Swift, DK Metcalf, Devonta, Amon-Ra, Goddard, Christian McCaffrey. So really just a lot of studs in this lineup. Definitely the type of lineup that could score over 200 points and have that GPP winning upside. Let's play with this just a little bit more. We'll put in like 5% randomization and just do like 100 lineups so we can get through this a little quicker. But like I said, when you're on your own, I probably would run a 1-2 run about 150. Yes, seems to be going quite a bit faster. All right, we got 27% Mahomes lineups. So obviously we like what the Minshew lineups are spitting out. This one had AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert, was able to get Justin Jefferson, Stevenson, Swift. So yeah, I'll have a lot of exposure to Minshew lineups just because I'm loving what I'm seeing here right now. Being able to get Derrick Henry and Christian McCaffrey in the same lineup. Also, Ramondre Stevenson, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. Yeah, certainly love that. But let's see what it's kind of given us as far as Mahomes. So yeah, Mahomes, Juju, MBS, doing a DK Metcalf bring back. Now you can also set rules in the domination station to force a stack with a Kelsey. But I typically like to let the domination station do what it does. And if I really want to build some Mahomes and Kelsey lineups and I'm not getting it, I'll set a minimum exposures a little bit. And you can also put it like a dislike on like a Christian McCaffrey and like a Derrick Henry because too many of them will pop up and it'll prevent you from getting Mahomes and Kelsey just because you just can't forward them together. But yeah, looks like a lot of Juju and Stevenson. And then another thing too is you could set a rule that you can stack Mahomes with a running back too, specifically Jerick McKinnon. You'll get more Mahomes McKinnon lineups like we saw in the Millie Maker last week because he's a receiving back. So we could set rules for that too, for example. Like we could do quarterback Patrick Mahomes with no less than 2 of running back ad rule as well. So boom, no less than 2 quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. And that will give us McKinnon and Pacheco lineups as well. So you could do all sorts of things with the optimizer. If you are a DFS Army VIP, if you're not, use code FantasyFling for 10% off a VIP subscription. I think that's going to do it. So if you like this kind of content, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. And obviously hit that notification button as we go live for all of our shows, but specifically the showdown breakdowns, as you don't want to miss those. DFS Army's been crushing those this year. So wish you all the best of luck on Christmas Eve. Hope you all have a Merry Christmas. We'll see you next week.